Hey, indie filmmakers, I'm Nick Bodmer.
I'm Griffin Hammond, and on this week's episode, Nick and I compare our tech setups for recording this podcast. I even sent Nick some new gear.
Plus your questions about shot stabilization, how to read video scopes, and why we don't use Adobe Premiere.
Hey, Nick.
Hey, Griffin. How are you, sir?
Your shot looks different.
Well, you don't really know that because you don't see it yet.
I don't. We don't record it somehow with a live feed coming through to me.
I am off the iPhone and on to a proper DSLR style camera.
So I now have GH5s. That's what I'm shooting mine on a Panasonic GH5. I still have GH4s.
Your GH5s, it's plural. You have more than one GH5 and more than one GH4.
I do. And I still had my GH3. This is the GH3 that shot Sriracha.
Ah, I thought it felt familiar in the hand.
And now you have it, because I don't need it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Again, I had the GH2, which I got rid of because it was just getting a little long on the tooth. And it's nice to have a proper camera again. It feels good. And I like this lens you sent me.
Oh, yeah. I sent you a Panasonic lens. That was one of the lenses that Panasonic gave me. They gave me a whole bunch of lenses to try out with the GH5. And this is one that I wasn't sure I'd have much use for. It's a 15 millimeter, right?
It is a 15 millimeter f1.7.
Okay. Nice
and compact, too. Nice little lens.
Yeah. So when we're doing the podcast, the video version, I'm recording on my 12 millimeter f1.4. And I like it, but it's it's such a small focal length or wide focal length that it kind of distorts distance a little bit. Probably makes my nose look longer.
Yeah, and I don't need any help in that department, so I'm glad I'm on the 15. Gives me just a little bit more to work with. I hope I figured that was like a similar. Hopefully I'm in focus. You know, the audience is going to be pretty critical if I did not nail focus. So
yeah,
we'll see how that goes.
But I thought they'd be close focal lengths, similar apertures. We could get a similar shot, similar depth of field out of them. Sure. So you're doing, what f-stop are you shooting at right now?
I'm shooting at f2 just to kind of dial in the exposure where I wanted it. That looked pretty good.
Yeah. Well, see, one of the challenges with me I'm shooting at f1.4, or 1.4, so I'm wide open on this lens right now. But it means that with the lighting that I'm using a decent amount of light in this room. I have to throw an ND filter on, so I'm using like an ND 0.9 filter right now to knock it down, and then I'm able to actually be at an 800 ISO. I imagine you're probably at your lowest ISO.
It's not the lowest. I did turn it up a little bit. I don't remember what it's at. Maybe 400-ish.
But you had to compensate a little bit with the aperture.
Yeah, just to dial it in super smooth, super close. I'm doing a little lighting myself, not as fancy as yours, but I have a nice side light. Just a light fixture that's flexible that I'm bouncing off the wall for a little diffusion on this side.
That's smart.
And then on the right side of my face, I'm going to do something you can't see, Griffin, but my computer monitor is actually acting as a nice little fill light. I have a black background on my desktop normally, so I'm going to close this big window I have open, and you can see it gets a little too dark. In fact, there's that. Whoa, way too dark. So we'll bring that back, and it fills in nicely. It might be a little blue, but we'll just make you color correct that for me.
I actually turn my screen almost all the way down brightness-wise because it does throw a lot of blue light on me. Although I think it helps that I have these really... I'm using the Westcott Flex light right now, and it can put out a decent amount of power, so it's fighting the screen pretty effectively.
Well, I'm making use of the screen because I am an indie filmmaker, very frugal. Unlike you.
And so we've mixed up the shots this time. Normally you shoot from the other side.
Right. That was the only place I could get the iPhone where it really fit properly because I didn't have such a wide lens. And it was shooting right into this kind of ugly wall to my left with no depth. So since I've got a proper lens here now, I thought I would shoot into the room, add a little depth to the shot, at least, was my idea. You can see my doors, which is fun for everybody.
So at this focal length, you can get the camera a lot closer to your face, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's got to be 3 times closer than the iPhone was. It
Well,
fits on my desk on a little tripod, which is nice.
that was part of the challenge of mixing our footage. I mean, I knew that my shot looked different than yours, but I love this 12mm lens so much that I was willing to do it anyway. But your iPhone probably had more of like a 25 or 30mm equivalent to like the Panasonic.
Sure.
So it's just a flatter shot. It's farther away from you. I mean flatter in terms of like how much it exaggerates distance.
Right. You didn't mean it was flattering on me? No?
Or like a flat color profile, no.
That's what it.
But yeah, they were just different shots, and naturally, just the size of our faces were a little bit different. So I was actually zooming in your shot a little bit.
Sure.
I don't know if you noticed that sometimes.
Yeah, I kind of did notice you were doing a little crop and zoom, but
yeah,
hopefully it's a little easier now with a proper shot.
Yeah,
I like it. And normally I would say this is boring behind the scenes stuff you wouldn't want to share on a podcast, but I think we've got the right audience for these kind of technical details.
Well, yeah, there's something really interesting about just walking through all the tech setup for a shoot, and it just so happens we're doing the same shoot every week, so you should walk through.
We get to tweak it and make it better each time. I'm sure I'm screwing something up right now. It says it's recording, so I've got that going for me.
Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't messed this up yet. Like, we're one of these days we're gonna get to the end of a podcast and realize we forgot to shoot the video or forgot to record the audio.
Yep. Well, I record both sides of the conversation, so if you ever screw up, we might have a backup.
What are you getting? Just my audio through FaceTime?
That's right.
Yeah. So we've talked about, like, I'm recording into my Zoom H5, and I'm actually plugging it in via USB right now just as a way to power it so that it's not draining any battery life while we're recording. I could use it as an audio interface into the computer and record my audio. I've even thought about sending my audio to you over Skype at the same time.
Yeah, I was. That's what I'm doing. I've got my H4n as an audio interface, so it's plugged into my laptop, and that's what's routing this audio into Audio Hijack, which is what's doing the recording. But I couldn't see, we've been using Apple FaceTime recently, and I don't think you can set the default microphone. Can you tell? Is it coming out of... Here, I'm going to tap on this mic.
And then whichever one you just tapped on is the one I'm hearing.
Yeah. That's the headset I'm wearing, so...
Okay, yeah. Yeah, we're just hearing each other through iPhone headsets, through FaceTime, and then recording each of ourselves locally.
Yep.
In fact, we have a YouTube comment from Anthony Martinez, and I think we also got a tweet about this. He was wondering, what is that program that's always running in the background on your laptop?
Which you can't see now in the new
your
shot.
Shot's different now.
The shot's different. You don't get to see it anymore, Anthony. I'm sorry. I know it was exciting. But that is Audio Hijack by, I believe it's Rogue Amoeba Software.
Yeah.
Let me tell you if that's true. Yes, it is.
That's true, yeah.
They make some really great audio software for the Mac. Great developer. Super easy to use workflows. You can drop these little blocks and do, anything you can think of. I'm using a very simple version, but it's got a ton of stuff. So if you're doing any audio stuff on the Mac.
The only thing I've ever used Audio Hijack for was just taking audio from from Firefox or Safari or something. Like you just take system audio, you can record it. I've never actually used it as just a recording piece of software like you're using.
Yeah, and so I've got all these blocks set up. So like for my recording, there's actually 5 blocks. I've got the input block, which sets the input. Then I've got a levels block that just shows me, level meters. And then I've got the recorder, so it's recording what comes out of that. And then I have it set to a volume adjustment and then an output, so I can hear myself if I want to and adjust the volume independently of the recording.
Yeah.
But I have it turned off right now.
I guess one of the big benefits of using that over the audio recorder is that you can also record this FaceTime conversation as a backup.
Yep, and they'd be perfectly synced, which is nice.
Yeah. But are there any other reasons why you prefer using Audio Hijack versus just recording it onto your H4n?
No, except for, in my head I thought I would be doing more with routing my microphone audio into the app we're talking on, but I've gotten lazy, I guess.
I suppose just battery life. You have a device that needs battery versus a computer right in front of you that doesn't.
Yep. And why do it the easy way when I could do it the more technically interesting way? In
fact, speaking of battery, I actually am trying not to use the battery on my camera today, the GH5, I have the little AC adapter. It actually looks like a battery. You put it into the battery
coming
compartment.
out. Yeah, I've seen that.
And it's the same one that works on the GH3, GH4. I think I bought it with the GH3. So I'm using that today.
Good. Well, thank you for also sending a battery charger along with the camera. That was good thinking.
Yeah, I sent you one battery charger, one battery, which I think should be enough for the GH3 to get through probably a couple hours of rolling.
We're going to find out. We're 12 minutes
Probably more
in.
than that even. Yeah, if we can make it through the show.
Anything else about our fun setups?
Well, what's interesting is because you have the new camera and I can't see your shot, we sent each other like iPhone photos of our LCDs.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I could have taken a picture or something, I guess, but just seemed easiest to show you what I set up.
Well, yeah, it was helpful because as soon as you showed it to me, I realized you've put the camera now on the other side of your face that you normally do, which, if the two of us are in a split screen side by side looking at each other, well, ideally we want to be looking at each other, not both of us looking to the left or to the right. I had to switch up my shot to match.
Boom.
So now I'm looking the opposite direction, which is a slightly different shot, similar background. Actually, this is more logical because now I'm facing my computer. Because actually, early in the podcast, I had to make a decision to start shooting with myself pointing away from my computer because you were always... I didn't want to be looking the same direction as you.
Well, I like the shot you sent me with the laptop or with your iMac in the shot. I think it looks good.
Yeah. And there was... I can't remember which episode of the podcast it was, but early on... I mean... A few of our episodes we recorded together.
Is the brick not real? Is that a backdrop?
No, the brick's real.
Well, the brick was in the other shot.
Yeah, it's the same brick.
You just said you were shooting from the other angle. Shouldn't there be like a closet there or something? I'm confused.
No, I'm still shooting. The camera's still pointing the same direction. I just kind of changed my body position.
Oh, I gotcha. I got all confused. I'm with you. You were turned around 180 degrees, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, now I feel.
But early, there was an episode. We've had several episodes where we were together, so it's we can clearly shoot it the right way. There was one episode at least where I flipped your shot. I don't know if you ever noticed it.
I did not notice it, but that's smart. So my room was inverted and I didn't notice.
Yeah, I think one of the first, even in the arrangement you had been shooting for a while in your office that we settled on for a while. I think I flipped that maybe the first time you did it because I was facing the other way.
Gosh, this is fascinating stuff.
And I
really
can't.
Good.
I seem to think either it was selfish that I was flipping you and not me, but I seem to think that maybe probably just because I look at myself so much, but I assume that I have more defining characteristics about like the symmetry of my face. Like, do you part your hair?
No, I don't do anything to my hair.
You don't have like a mole or anything? Like, do you have anything? Do you look different when you're flipped? Do you think?
I have no idea. You'd have to ask my wife.
I guess I thought for me it'd be more obvious if I was flipped because the part on my hair would move.
Yeah. Gosh. Can't even imagine the horror of what that would be.
But I've done that in documentary before when I have like too many people looking one way and I want to mix it up, or if I'm trying to create that sense that two people are like having a dialogue scene with each other and you've shot it wrong. Or
that's interesting. When I've edited, I'll have two shots that I really like, but they just can't go together because like the motion is the same way or something like that. I guess I've never really considered flipping it. I have reverse shots just so that like a pan one way cuts to a pan the other way, as opposed to this, like the same movement. But inverting it might work too.
Yeah, I think in Final Cut it's just an effect called flip or flipped.
Good.
So one of the reasons that I sent you the camera is we were getting some comments about your video quality.
My video was. Well, this was going to be a podcast, guys. That was the idea. And then we filmed like the first one because we had GH5s, and now we're stuck with this YouTubers. They love us on the tubes.
Yeah. Now we have to shoot all of them,
yeah.
And they have to look good. So especially, it wasn't even so bad, your iPhone video, but then 2 episodes ago, I guess episode 11 was when it seemed like you had like like the aperture, the auto iris on the iPhone was just kind of going back and forth.
Out of control. Yeah. I
guess,
didn't do anything
maybe
different, but it was on full auto, so.
Yeah. I guess you weren't using like a special app like Filmic Pro or anything. I guess does it just look at the entire shot and try to expose it?
Yeah,
changing?
I guess. I don't know. They do a lot of image processing and smarts to try and do it right, but
yeah.
it's
Something about your head movement in that episode or the framing was confusing the camera, and it kept changing the exposure over and over and over again.
Well,
luckily I think the focus stayed the same.
Yeah. I'm in full auto now, or manual. God. Full manual, like a real person should be.
Did you even have to change any settings on the GH3, or I think they were all?
It was pretty much set up good to go. I went through them all. Just you want to make when you grab a new camera, you want to make sure you know how everything is set.
Yeah.
But in the end, I think I left everything exactly. It's on natural. It's on full manual. Everything. I had to redo the white balance. I guess that's the only thing I had to do.
Yeah. And this is a good example of like right now you're shooting on the GH3, I'm shooting on the GH5, but this is a good example of like for this kind of shoot, especially when we're mixing cameras, there's no reason for me to max out the GH5 and shoot in 4K. That would just be pointless for this video because you're shooting 1080. I could shoot 1080. We might as well shoot the same format.
You could send me a GH5 and then we could both shoot in 4K, and then that problem goes away.
Well, we've already discovered through several podcast episodes why it's so bad to shoot in 4K for this, because it like quadruples our render time and our export time and upload time. It just takes too long.
So did I tell you I'm back in the editing game? I haven't edited in a while, and I got a little project back on my plate.
What is it?
It's a wedding. I had a bride who was going to pick some final things for their highlight video 15 months ago, and said they were going to get back to me that weekend, and they just got back to me 15 months later.
Oh, wow.
So it's actually someone we know. We actually went to high school with this person, but I won't shame them right now. But now that's back, so I have to bust out my wedding editing skills again.
Yeah. Did you have to like go retrieve the footage from a server somewhere, or did you have it ready to go?
I had it on a portable hard drive close to my desk, so it was. I knew it was going to come back eventually, so I still had the library and everything's ready to go. Now I just got to do it.
Cool.
So maybe we can. We'll see how it turns out, but if it turns out well, maybe we can have you do like a live critique. Have you watch it and give me some pointers as an episode.
Yeah.
So you could edit it for me as an episode.
No, I don't want to do weddings.
But do you see how it could be a good podcast episode? That's why you would do it.
And you'd still get paid?
Dang. Oh, yeah. Well, that got paid 15 months ago, so that ship has sailed.
So for people who are new listeners, they may not know the audio side of what we're doing. I mean, we already talked about how we're recording it. I'm recording into my Zoom H5, but we're both using the same, the blue. What is this mic called?
Bottle. The blue baby bottle.
Yeah.
Which is a compressor mic. XLR, requires phantom power. It's got a nice shock mount it came with, and I've got mine just on a little desktop stand. I don't know what you're using.
Yeah, I'm also using a desktop stand I've had forever. It was like a little, what do they call that? Gooseneck? Yeah.
I don't have a gooseneck. I just have a straight up or down thing. So
okay.
Not as fancy as you.
And then are you using your why am I blanking on what this stuff is called today?
XLR cable?
The piece of pantyhose.
Oh, the pop filter?
Yeah,
no,
the pop filter.
You told me I sounded okay without it, so I stopped using it. Where is it? It's over here.
Yeah, we noticed several episodes went by without Nick using the pop filter. There's one built onto the mic. It doesn't seem to do a whole lot. So we got these external ones, but also Nick is not like breathing right on top of the mic, so
I can if you want.
It hasn't been a problem. I actually fixed mine. You know how this little cheap RA pop filter was pretty annoying. Like the clamp didn't work very well.
I'm showing it off right now. It's just got this really chintzy, terrible clamp that does nothing.
So I modified the clamp and made it good. I added my own rubber pieces to the inside of the clamp, so it's real grippy. I just glued those in. And then I took out the screw that was in it that was bad. The screw didn't even have... like the screw head doesn't have a thread for a screwdriver.
It's smooth.
So you can't even tighten it. It's all hand tightening.
Yeah.
So I just replaced it with a good screw and a good nut on the other side, just to make it a little bit easier to tighten. So now it's not going anywhere.
Congrats. I'm happy for you. No, it sounded a little mocking, but I wasn't. I would never mock you, Griffin.
For sound, we've talked about like dampening the room.
Yeah, which I forgot to do again.
Sometimes you've done stuff, right?
Yeah, I'll throw I've got some big pillows and stuff that I can put behind me just to kind of cut down on reflection. But,
now, when I'm editing, I haven't noticed. I mean, there's always a little bit of room sound. I mean, no room is perfectly dead unless you're going into a dead studio space, but you always get a little bit of reverb, and that's okay because you want to be able to hear the environment. But I've tried to remove a little bit of it here and there. I actually have, you don't see it in the shot, but right behind my camera, I just have a big blanket draped over all of my sliding closet doors, just to kind of get a bunch of the room covered in blanket.
Yep.
And then I'm also in a room with a bed and like a carpeted floor on top of the hardwood
always
floor.
helps. And you have
all
your
the
fake
stuff.
brick backdrop.
Yeah, no, it's a real brick.
That deadens all the sound.
I am accenting the brick by I have a little light. I have one light pointed at me, the Westcott Flex light. It's kind of just a soft light. It looks pretty good on me. And then I have a second one on the bed just pointed up, just to light the wall because it's behind my head. Is it a
flex light or is it one of your little cube lights?
It's another flex light.
Okay. Yeah, it looks good.
I find just to make it an accent light, I have to turn it up way higher because the one on my face is only at like 30% brightness. And I think the one on the wall is 100% brightness because I really wanted to.
I'm looking at the picture now. And it's like right behind your head, the bright spot. So it kind of, I don't know, you get like a natural vignette almost. It looks nice.
Yeah, it kind of acts like a backlight in a way just by creating something contrasty and different behind my face.
Yep. Looks good.
Yeah. So maybe we're finally doing it. We finally got two great shots.
We're getting there. I mean, mine's a little boring. I got these doors that are just blah. You know what? You need to send me one of those fake brick backdrops.
In just a moment, we're answering questions about shot stabilization and shoulder rigs, how to read video scopes, and why Nick and I don't use Adobe Premiere.
Hey Indie Filmmakers is brought to you by Wavem Studios and their full-length documentary, The Commodore Story, Changing the World 8 Bits at a Time.
It's the story of the manufacturer of some of the first ever home computers that famously closed its doors forever in 1984. And if you check out their Kickstarter page, they've actually doubled their fundraising goal.
Good for them.
And they still have 15 days to go.
That's fantastic.
13 maybe by the time this airs, but they were asking for roughly $20,000 and they've doubled that. I think that it helps that they've priced this thing pretty appropriately. The download is £10, that's around $13, and the Blu-ray is £25, which is around $31. So not far off from what I was charging when I did my Kickstarter campaign.
If you want to see the film at the end of this year and get your name in the credits, check out their Kickstarter in our show notes at Hey.film.
Our first question today is a tweet that I got from @Gazulicious. And he actually sent me this question during the live stream that I did with B&H Photo about the Panasonic GH5.
That was really good, by the way. I watched that while I was at work. I watched probably 3/4 of it. It was, I thought, a very well done live stream.
If you missed that and you're interested in watching about the GH5, I'll put the link to that in the show notes at Hey.film. But his question, I think they'd been asking me about shooting handheld, and so his question was, Griffin, why do you prefer filming handheld compared to filming with a rig? Do you use a rig for weddings? Nope. Unless you did, though, at one point.
I did, yeah. I started out because it kind of just felt like that's what you had to do or were supposed to do, I guess, and I would hang audio recorders on there, and I'd have a big shoulder rig and walk around, and it just, I'd get tired, and it just wasn't necessary. It would slow me down. So now, sometimes I'll shoot with a glide cam for a few shots. For the most part, though, it's either on a tripod or walking around handheld with just the camera.
Yeah. Well, yeah, when we got those cameras together, when we got like our first GH1 together, we got that big Indie Systems Ultra Compact rig, which was a heavy rig. It was like
heavy.
Thick metal. And we thought it was cool because it had it was almost like a cage.
Half cage,
it had a little,
kind of, right? Like a half cage with a handle on it.
So it was cool that you could mount everything onto one rig, and that made sense coming from a video background. But I think eventually, we just figured out, the audio recorder doesn't always have to be on the camera. Sometimes it's cool that it's plugged in somewhere else.
And I think for the kind of stuff we're doing, it's all run and gun, and you just need to be really flexible and quick. And for me, that rig was never that. So,
yeah.
And to be honest, now with image stabilization and lenses, and now in camera with like the GH5, I don't think you need it.
Well, yeah. Now with the in-body image stabilization, especially, it feels like you should be able to get away with this camera handheld. I do feel like I got pretty good at shooting just handheld.
Oh, just kind of get your arms low and up against your body, and
yeah.
Yes,
well, and the
indeed.
story I always tell when I give presentations about, especially with Panasonic recently, about like why I like being lightweight. I mean, it helps from a travel perspective. That's the big thing for me. But then I have this story about I was covering the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and have I told you the story where
I don't think so.
I got a tuxedo. I dressed up for this red carpet event. I didn't have press credentials for the event because we didn't have like enough of them. And besides press, with credentials, I would have just been like in this press pen, like on the side of the red carpet, looking at the red carpet, but hard to like actually talk to people. So I just walked onto the red carpet because it was like in the lobby of a hotel. You could enter the hotel and you'd be on the red carpet. So I just walked in with my Panasonic GH4, holding it close to my body. I don't have like, maybe I had an audio recorder in my pocket or something. I was kind of like hiding the extra gear I had.
Yeah.
And I just looked like a little lightweight, regular guy with a camera. And they just let me walk around the red carpet. Yeah. Like I was supposed to be there.
Can I say I'm a little disappointed you got a new tux? I remember in high school you purchasing a very nice tuxedo. Do you still have that tuxedo?
Yeah. That powder blue tuxedo I wore to prom.
Yeah.
I don't have that anymore.
Didn't it have women's buttons or something? Like the
No, that was a different piece. I used to buy a lot of things from the thrift store.
I know too much about what you used to wear in high school, I guess.
Yeah.
We're going to find some pictures. They're going to be in the show notes. Hey.film.
Okay. That's a good thing to add, yeah.
Forces you to do it. Then again, you could find pictures of me, and that nobody wants that. So you're the famous one. So you're the one I want to see. All right,
we'll find some pictures of us together.
All right. YouTube comment from Jimberjam. Question for next week, that's right now, about hand cut. What percentage of the shots were stabilized in post? Did you do most of the bar ice shots handheld or with your shoulder rig? Relates to the last question.
Yeah, that's why I put it in this order.
Somebody planned it. It was probably me.
I did not use a shoulder rig for the hand cut ice documentary. It was mostly handheld. I guess I was trying to show off the in-body image stabilization. I think there was one or two shots that I stabilized. One was there was a shot that kind of looked like a dolly shot over some large pieces of ice, and it just needed that extra push from like warp stabilizer, Adobe After Effects, just to like clean it up and make it look like this really. It was a shot that just felt like it needed to have that perfect dolly movement. Whereas most of the shots in the piece, I'm comfortable with a fair amount of handheld movement. So
sure.
I think I only stabilized 2 out of, 300 shots in that piece.
Now, you did have some that were tripod shots or jib shots and things like that, right?
Yeah, I had a few jibs. I mean, if you look carefully, you should be able to tell which ones are jibs. They're moving vertically. And then a few, I think the interviews are tripod. There was a couple tripod shots I threw in. The time lapses are tripod, of course. But pretty much everything else is handheld.
Well, it looked good.
Thanks. We got a YouTube comment from Mike Vrobel, who was referencing last week's episode about film festivals. And we were talking about the cost of entering film festivals. And he asked if you get any money if your film is selected. What do you think, Nick?
I'm going to guess no.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably... I'm sure many of the prizes at film festivals come with money at the bigger festivals. But I've never, even though I've won a couple of awards for my film, I did not win any money. The most I won was like a glass award.
You didn't win a big jackpot at the Houston Asian American Pacific Islander Film Festival? Their pot wasn't real big, huh?
No, the Houston Asian American Pacific Islander Film Festival, that's probably not exactly the name. It's close. That's a free film festival, so they don't have money to give.
Boom.
But no, you're paying money, you're investing money to submit to these things, and you're not really getting any money back. Definitely not from the festival.
I tell you, we need to be starting our own film festival, Griffin. It sounds like a good racket.
We should do a film festival where you do give people back just a little bit of money. Like you paid $30 to get in,
here's your
you get $10
prize. Oh, see, you're nicer than me.
Well, no, then we can have prizes for the best ones. But
okay, I like it.
I like this idea of at least like rewarding people for getting in. I don't know. I think the reward is just you get pretty excited when you get in. You're like,
right.
Oh, good, that money actually paid off in some way.
All right, we got a YouTube comment from Scott Sullivan. He wants to know why we prefer Final Cut Pro over the superior Adobe Premiere Pro. I think he's got an agenda there. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, he put the word superior in there.
Yeah, he did. Well, here's what I think. Okay, nonlinear editors, for whatever reason, are like religion to people. People really feel very strongly about...
They do take them very seriously. And people were angry when Final Cut Pro 10 came out.
That's when I jumped on the Final Cut bandwagon. I never edited with 7, so...
Oh, yeah.
So I first edited on Avid. I've edited a ton on Premiere Pro, where we had, of course, Studio DV back in the day.
Yeah.
I did a ton on EDS Grass Valley, or Grass Valley EDS, which I liked for a long time, especially when H.264 first came out. It could handle those natively when others couldn't. But when Final Cut 10 came out, I gave it a try, and it just it fit my style, and it sped up my time of editing, and I haven't looked back since. So that's why I'm on it. I have no problem with Premiere. If I was editing on Windows, that's probably what I would use. But since I'm on Mac right now, for my video editing, that's what I use.
I mean, I guess people do spend a lot more time in editing software than they do with a particular camera, for example.
Sure.
So I understand why people are so emotionally attached to the one that they use, and they believe that if it's a great piece of software, it's going to save them a lot of time in the long run, and it's, they're trying to get everyone to use it. I used Premiere when I was in high school. At some point, I got a Mac and won a copy of Final Cut, or maybe I won the Mac and got like a cheap
student edition of Final Cut 7.
Yeah, student pricing. And then, so when Final Cut 10 came out, I thought, why not try the latest? And I understand why people who are really entrenched in their workflow with 7 didn't like it, because Final Cut 10 did some very different things. But for the most part, after a quick learning curve, I appreciated the changes. Like little things like all these editing softwares are pretty much the same. Final Cut 7 and Adobe Premiere are pretty much, I mean, they're shaped the same. They have the same features in roughly the same places. And I liked that Final Cut 10 was willing to throw a few things away and try something different. Like, we don't need a program monitor and a preview monitor. We can just do one monitor. And they kind of changed how you can throw things in the timeline. There's still insert, there's still overwrite, but then there's also append to the end.
The whole concept of the magnetic timeline really, once my brain kind of clicked around it, really worked well for me.
Yeah, I do like the magnetic timeline now. I'm used to it. So, I mean, I'm sure I could learn Premiere again, but I just don't need to right now. There are a few things like Warp Stabilizer that I end up going to Adobe After Effects for, and I would love to have that built in, but it doesn't seem like enough to make me learn a new piece of software.
Yep. So in conclusion, I don't think either of us have anything against Adobe Premiere, and I think that would probably be our next choice if we weren't using Final Cut 10.
Yeah. But I just think like most things in filmmaking, most camera equipment or software, there's no reason to throw it away and try something new until you've reached the ceiling. Like once I am trying to do something in Final Cut that I realize it just can't do, then I'll go to Premiere. Just like when I'm shooting with a camera and it can't do the thing that I know I need to do creatively, then I get a new camera. But I don't go out and buy all new stuff just because I'm trying to get the best stuff out there.
Makes sense.
Our next question is an email from Tim, and it's simple. It's just, what are video scopes and what are they used for?
What are you good for?
Do you ever use
nothing?
Any sort of video scopes in Final Cut?
I do, usually when I'm adjusting exposure. Sometimes I have a dark wedding and I need to push things a little bit. And I will bring up the, histogram. Is that what you call it?
Well, you're probably looking at like the waveform, right?
That's right, yeah.
The like the Luma waveform,
Yeah, the very cool looking one. But just
I do the same thing when I'm color correcting. I do Command 6 in Final Cut is bring up the color correction, and then at the same time I'll do Command 7, which brings up the waveform.
Oh, see, I didn't know Command 7. I always just go grab it out of the menu like a loser.
And you could toggle it on and off with that.
That is handy. But yeah, that's great because it shows you. You correct me if I'm wrong. It's no, you. Why don't you explain it? Because I realize I can't explain it properly.
Well, yeah, a waveform is kind of weird to look at first, and I guess you're just seeing. It's just a chart with X and Y coordinates, and on the Y-axis it's 0 through 100, and that's just levels of brightness. So 0 being black, 100 being white, and you're just charting horizontally across the image. You're charting what are the pixels in this part of the image doing, and how bright are they? Right,
that's where I started to get confused. So is it a slice? It's a vertical, like a column of the image that it shows?
Yeah, you're really seeing a slice of vertical pixels, and then their like average luminance. And in Final Cut, it also colors them, so you can kind of see what color and how bright each part of the image is. And mostly what you're looking for when you're color correcting is, especially when you're making changes, you don't want to push things too much that they all go over 100 or they all go below 0, because now you're just ruining pixels.
Yeah, crushing your blacks or blowing out your highlights.
You're just getting rid of contrast by doing that. And likewise, you can see when you've shot something with, if everything looks mashed up against the ceiling of the chart, there was something overexposed. Sometimes that's okay. If you were filming into the sun or filming into a light, you would expect something to be overexposed and smashed up against the top.
Mm-hmm.
But it helps you visualize what you're seeing in the image, so you don't have to necessarily trust your monitor.
Yeah, like when I was setting up this shot that is filming me right now, I think you were already on the call with me. I was looking at the histogram, and the camera said I was overexposed by like over a stop. But looking at the histogram, I could see there was just one big spike all the way on the right, which are these two white doors.
Yeah.
And the rest of the image was not. So I cranked up the exposure, and I could watch that histogram kind of expand out and get closer to the edge, which was 100%, but not all the way. And that's how I knew I was dialed in about right.
Yeah. So a histogram and a waveform look similar.
They're kind of 90-degree rotated.
Well, and the histogram is actually just charting
overall.
It's charting along the x-axis. It's charting the number of pixels at that brightness level.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's not showing you where in the image things are bright. It's showing you how many pixels are really bright versus not. So if you're...
So a little less information.
Yeah, definitely less information. And if you see all the pixels, like if you see the chart is really heavy on the right side, that means everything's too bright. Or if everything's on the left side, everything's too dark. It's saying all the pixels are lower in brightness if they're over on the left, or higher in brightness if they're over on the right. But a histogram can fool you in a case like your shot where you have two big white doors. You're clearly going to have a lot of your shot is going to be heavy on the brightness.
Yep.
Yeah. So it should be skewed to the right. But yeah, that's really all a histogram shows you. Ideally, you'd see kind of a nice bell curve. if you were shooting like a plain, boring thing where it should be evenly distributed, you would expect to see like a bell curve where there's even amounts of dark pixels and medium pixels and bright pixels.
Sure. Makes sense.
But all of these things you got to remember whenever you're relying on the tools like waveforms or histograms, there's still subjectivity to the art that you're creating. The thing that you're creating might need to be dark or need to be bright, so don't just expose everything in the middle all the time.
Makes sense. Any others?
And then the only other scope that he might be referring to is something called the vector scope, which I never use. It's only for color, and I suppose if I was a colorist, I would know more about it. But it doesn't tell you anything about brightness, and it's like a wheel, and it shows you where the color distribution of the image is, like how far. It kind of shows you saturation and color. So if you're trying to match some shots, looking at vector scopes can be helpful because you're trying to get them to be generally in the same color space.
Color is one area where I do not have a good skill set, and it always seems like, man, if I just had a little extra time, that would be one of the things I would dive into and really learn how to properly color an image and, use DaVinci Resolve and all that fun stuff.
I know. I've talked to a NYU student who we've chatted a little bit about what she's doing in her career, and she's learning DaVinci Resolve, and that just seems like the smartest thing because there's so much demand for colorists, and especially there's more excitement of shooting log profiles and doing a lot of color on your own. I think if you could build that skill set, that's really smart. I wish that I had the time to learn Resolve.
Me too.
Our final question today is an email from Brendan, who has a very specific question about the Panasonic GH4. He's recording audio using one of those juiced link preamps into the GH4, and he has a Rode NTG2 with the high pass filter on plugged into the juiced link. But the thing that he's noticing is he has his audio set in the camera to negative 12 dB, but he feels like the gain is changing while he's shooting, that every time the people he's interviewing stop talking for 2 or 3 seconds in the middle of each sentence, he hears the noise level spike up and then goes back down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're a sound professional, Nick. Or that's what you're doing.
Or I play one on TV.
Yeah.
It sounds like automatic gain control is on somewhere, is what it sounds like. So that's a feature so built into the GH3 most likely. I actually don't know specifically on these line of cameras, but it's got a little microphone built in that in general you don't mess with. It tries to set an appropriate level for what's happening, and that means when it's not hearing anything, it's turning it up in case it's missing something, and when it hears something loud, it comes down and tries to just keep everything at the same level. So what you're hearing is some aggressive auto gain control. So I don't know anything about those juice link preamps, so I'm not sure if that's something that might have a gain control built into it, so check there. But in general, if you can just run your mic straight into, I think he says he's got an H4n or an H6 or something, that there you can control and make sure automatic gain control is disabled, because I'm sure the H4n has it built in as a feature, but not something you want to use if you're going to be able to control and monitor your audio.
I've always liked using the external recorders just to have that amount of control, but I was kind of curious because I always wondered if maybe the Panasonic cameras were doing some automatic gain even when you set the level. So I asked my Panasonic friends, actually the guys that we talked to in episode 2, Sean Robinson and Matt Frazier, and Matt told me that if you have the mic level limiter setting off, it shouldn't be doing auto gain. He doesn't believe. So I would check to see if you have that setting on. But otherwise, if you do have that on, I think the camera will be making some choices for you.
And that's kind of what a limiter is, right? There's going to be some gain and then a shelf where it cuts off. So
yeah,
turn that off. But yeah, I would just skip. In general, I don't like recording to the camera. If you've got an audio recorder, record straight to that and read the manual and make sure you've got that dialed in right where you want it.
Yeah. Although with the GH5, they do now have the XLR adapter, which I'm told is all manual when you want it to be. It does have a little auto gain switch as well, but you can switch that off.
Very cool. Well, Griffin, I think that's the show today.
That's our show. Let's let these people out of here.
Thanks for watching and listening, everybody. You can see the show notes at Hey.film.
And please keep listening.
Please. I've been looking at myself the whole time. Is that weird? Do you look at your viewfinder?
I do, to check every once in a while just to make sure it's still rolling. And
also, you put these little tags at the end of all the videos with something stupid that I've done. And I've noticed it's not been you one time yet doing something stupid. It's always me. What's up with that?
I think it's just you're more interesting than me. I'm not looking for something stupid necessarily. I'm looking for something fun.
That I like better. Let's call it that.